The WNBA just made a stunning admission about what happened to Caitlyn Clark, and it changes everything. But before we dive into that bombshell, let me ask you this. What happens when the most popular athlete in America, not just female athlete, but the most popular athlete period, gets repeatedly targeted on the court while the refs just stand there and watch? Well, we're about to find out, and the answer might determine whether the WNBA survives or collapses under the weight of its own incompetence. If you're as frustrated as I am about what's happening to Caitlyn Clark, hit that like button right now. Every like sends a message that we won't stand for this anymore. What Rebecca Lobo just revealed about the WNBA refs and Caitlyn Clark should terrify every single person who cares about women's basketball. This isn't just another hot take from a talking head. This is a Hall of Famer, an Olympic gold medalist, someone who's been around this league since 1997, pulling back the curtain on what's really happening behind closed doors. And what she discovered after talking to coaches across the entire league is worse than anyone imagined. But first, we need to talk about what just happened this week, because the WNBA finally admitted what we've all been screaming about for months. They were wrong, dead wrong, after Marina Mabrey literally shoved Caitlyn Clark to the ground in a game that looked more like a street fight than professional basketball. The league quietly upgraded her technical to a flagrant 2. That's right, they admitted the refs completely blew it. But here's the kicker. They did it after the fact, when it no longer mattered, when the damage was already done. Think about that for a second. The face of your league, the player single-handedly responsible for your ratings explosion, gets assaulted on national television, and your refs just stand there like they're watching a pickup game at the local Y. And the league's response? A quiet admission days later that, yeah, maybe they should have done something about it. It's like a firefighter showing up after your house burns down and saying, oops, we probably should have brought water. But this goes so much deeper than one bad call or one dirty play. What Rebecca Lobo revealed should have every WNBA executive losing sleep. She didn't just talk to 1 or 2 coaches. She talked to coaches across the entire league, and every single one of them said the same thing. The officiating needs to get better. Not some of them, not most of them, all of them. When you have universal agreement from competitors who can't agree on anything else, you know you have a crisis. And here's where it gets really scary. One coach told Rebecca that they literally instruct their players to be as physical as possible for 40 minutes, because they know for 38 of those minutes, they'll get away with it. Let that sink in. Coaches are game planning around the refs' incompetence. They're not teaching basketball anymore. They're teaching how to exploit a broken system. It's like telling your kids to run red lights because you know there's no traffic cops on duty. The examples are endless, and they're getting worse. Just last week, Natasha Cloud basically tackled Caitlyn on the final possession of a game against the Liberty. The replay showed Cloud shoving her shoulder into Caitlyn so hard that the ball went flying. No call, game over. Caitlyn immediately looked at the refs, threw her arms up, and you could see the frustration boiling over. Her coach, Stephanie White, went nuclear in the post-game, calling the officiating egregious and saying the disrespect for their team has been unbelievable. And White got fined for those comments. Think about that. The coach gets punished for pointing out the obvious, while the refs who are failing at their jobs face 0 consequences. It's like getting a speeding ticket for honking at the drunk driver who just ran you off the road. The system isn't just broken, it's backwards. But here's what really exposes how deep this problem runs. It's not just happening to Caitlyn Clark. A'ja Wilson, the reigning MVP, took a shot to the head that should have been a flagrant 2. Instead, common foul. She's now in concussion protocol, missing games because the refs couldn't be bothered to protect one of the league's biggest stars. Kelsey Plum went off about opponents coming and just swinging at players with no calls. Becky Hammon, one of the most respected coaches in basketball, unloaded on the officials after her team got mauled with no protection. The pattern is undeniable. The WNBA has completely lost control of its product. And the timing couldn't be worse, because while all this chaos is happening on the court, something extraordinary is happening off it. Sophie Cunningham, a player most casual fans couldn't have picked out of a lineup a month ago, defended Caitlyn Clark after the Marina Mabrey incident. She stood up for her teammate, called out the dirty play, and guess what happened? She gained over 1 million followers overnight. 1 million. Her TikTok exploded. Fans flooded her comments with support. People who had never watched the WNBA before were suddenly saying they needed a Cunningham jersey. This is the Caitlyn Clark effect in real time. Support her, and her massive fanbase supports you. It's not complicated, it's not some mystery that needs to be solved. The blueprint is right there, written in neon lights. Protect your golden goose, and everyone benefits. Let her get mauled night after night, and you're not just hurting Caitlyn, you're hurting the entire league. The numbers tell the story better than any words could. When Caitlyn was out with injury for 5 games, what happened? Viewership crashed by 50% in some cases. 50%! That's not a dip, that's a nosedive. Social media engagement flatlined. National media stopped caring. The WNBA went from must-see TV to background noise faster than you can say technical foul. Then Caitlyn comes back, and what happens? She drops 25 points in a half, hits 3 logo threes in 38 seconds, and suddenly everyone's talking about the WNBA again. Their game against the Liberty peaked at 2.8 million viewers. That's more than the NHL Stanley Cup Finals averaged. Let me repeat that. A regular season WNBA game outdrew the championship of a sport that's been around for over a century. And how does the league respond to this gift from the basketball gods? By letting their refs turn games into wrestling matches, by allowing players to target their meal ticket with impunity, by creating an environment where coaches literally tell their players to hack and grab because they know the whistles won't blow. Rebecca Lobo put it perfectly when she said, "Caitlyn is very difficult to officiate because of all the contact happening around her all the time." But you know what? That's not an excuse. That's the job. If you can't handle officiating the most watched player in your sport, then maybe you shouldn't be officiating at all. It's like a chef saying cooking is hard because the kitchen gets hot. Yeah, no kidding. That's why they pay you to do it. But here's where the WNBA's incompetence becomes genuinely dangerous. We're not talking about a few hard fouls anymore. We're talking about plays that could end careers. JC Sheldon literally clawed at Caitlyn's face. Marina Mabrey body slammed her from behind. Players are twisting her arms, grabbing her shoulders, doing things that would get you ejected in a pickup game at the park. And the message from the league, intentional or not, is crystal clear. Open season on Caitlyn Clark. Do whatever you want. The refs won't stop you. In fact, when coaches complain about it, we'll find them instead of fixing the problem. Stephanie White said it best. The game has evolved. Players are faster, stronger, more athletic than ever. Everyone's getting better except the officials. That's not just a criticism, that's an indictment of an entire system that's failing to keep pace with its own growth. And here's the part that should terrify Cathy Engelbert and every WNBA executive. This isn't sustainable. You can't build a league on one player's shoulders and then let that player get beaten up night after night. You can't have coaches across the league agreeing that officiating is a joke and expect the product to improve. You can't fine coaches for speaking truth while letting incompetent refs destroy your games. The NHL had this figured out decades ago with Wayne Gretzky. Players could hit him, sure, but there was an unspoken rule. You don't take cheap shots at the guy who's making everyone money. You don't target the player who's lifting all boats. It wasn't about special treatment, it was about smart business. But the WNBA seems determined to learn this lesson the hard way. They've got coaches telling players to be as physical as possible because the refs won't call it. They've got their biggest star getting mauled on national television. They've got a system where the only people facing consequences are the ones pointing out the problems. The irony is staggering. Cathy Engelbert went on record calling Caitlyn Clark the most popular athlete in America. Not women's athlete, athlete, period. She acknowledged what everyone already knows, that Caitlyn isn't just important to the WNBA, she's essential. Without her, the league goes back to being a niche sport that most people ignore. Yet, they're treating her like she's expendable. Like they can afford to let her get roughed up game after game. Like her health and safety don't matter as much as maintaining some bizarre facade of toughness. But here's what they don't seem to understand. Fans aren't stupid. We see what's happening, we see the double standard, we see the missed calls, the dirty plays, the refs standing there like statues while Caitlyn gets mugged. And every time it happens, the WNBA loses a little more credibility. The league is at a crossroads right now. They can either fix this officiating crisis and protect their most valuable asset, or they can continue down this path and watch everything Caitlyn Clark has built for them crumble. Because make no mistake, if Caitlyn gets seriously injured because of this negligence, it's game over for the WNBA's momentum. You think losing her for 5 games hurt ratings? Imagine losing her for a season. Imagine losing her permanently because some player decided to take a cheap shot and the refs just watched it happen. The sponsors would flee, the networks would bail, the new fans would disappear faster than they arrived. What's even more frustrating is that the solution is staring them in the face. Other leagues have figured this out. The NBA doesn't let its stars get mauled. The NFL protects quarterbacks like they're made of gold. Even college basketball does a better job protecting players than the WNBA is doing right now. The infrastructure issues Rebecca Lobo hinted at are damning. NBA refs are full-time employees with 6-figure salaries. WNBA refs get paid by the game and work college ball in the offseason. NBA games have replay centers and detailed reports on controversial calls. The WNBA has refs reviewing their own calls on a tiny monitor at the scorer's table. It's like comparing a Ferrari to a bicycle and wondering why one goes faster. But infrastructure is just an excuse if there's no will to change. And right now, it seems like the WNBA is more interested in maintaining the status quo than protecting its players or improving its product. They're more concerned with finding coaches who speak out than addressing the actual problems. The testimony from players is heartbreaking. They're literally saying they worry about getting injured because of how physical the game has become without proper officiating. They're adjusting their playing styles not for strategic reasons, but for survival. That's not basketball, that's barely controlled chaos. And through it all, Caitlyn Clark keeps showing up, keeps dropping logo threes, keeps making passes that make your jaw drop, keeps filling arenas and driving ratings. She's doing her part, and then some. The least the league can do is make sure she doesn't get assaulted while she's doing it. The Sophie Cunningham situation proves what everyone already suspected. The WNBA is sitting on a gold mine. Players who support Caitlyn see their profiles explode. Teams that protect her see their ratings soar. It's the easiest math in sports. Take care of Caitlyn Clark, and Caitlyn Clark's fans will take care of you. But instead of embracing this gift, the league seems determined to squander it through sheer incompetence. They're letting personal vendettas and petty jealousies override basic business sense. They're allowing a culture where targeting their biggest star is not just acceptable, but expected. When Rebecca Lobo says she's never seen anything like Caitlyn's shooting display in her decades around the league, that should be a wake-up call. This is a generational talent doing things that haven't been done before, and the league's response is to let her get beaten up while they count their money. The clock is ticking on this situation. Every game where Caitlyn gets targeted and the refs do nothing is another step toward disaster. Every missed call is another crack in the foundation. Every coach who has to game plan around referee incompetence is another indictment of a broken system. The WNBA has a choice to make, and they need to make it now. Either commit to proper officiating and player safety, or admit that you're running a Bush League operation that doesn't deserve the gift Caitlyn Clark has given you. Because right now, they're trying to have it both ways, and it's not working. The fans see through it. The players know what's happening. The coaches are literally saying it out loud. The only people who seem oblivious are the ones with the power to fix it. And that might be the most damning indictment of all. Caitlyn Clark deserves better. The fans deserve better. The game deserves better. And until the WNBA figures that out, we're going to keep calling them out. Because someone has to stand up for what's right, even if the league won't. If you made it this far, you're as invested in this as I am. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because we're not letting this story die. The WNBA might want to sweep this under the rug, but we're going to keep shining a light on it until something changes. Because Caitlyn Clark isn't just the face of the WNBA, she's the future of women's basketball. And that future is worth fighting for.